Last night, tensions in the Middle East rose sharply. In a dramatic military operation, United States forces carried out a large-scale precision strike on Kharg Island, targeting what officials describe as critical Iranian military infrastructure. According to United States Central Command, the operation destroyed naval mine storage sites, missile bunkers, and multiple military installations across the island. In total, more than 90 Iranian military targets were reportedly struck. But there is one detail that makes this operation especially significant. Despite the scale of the attack, the United States deliberately avoided damaging the island's oil infrastructure. And that decision could have major consequences for global energy markets and the future of the US-Iran conflict. Tonight, we break down why Kharg Island was targeted, what CENTCOM revealed about the strike, the reaction from Donald Trump, Iran's response and warnings of retaliation, global reaction and public opinion, and why this small island could influence oil prices and the security of the Persian Gulf. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe for in-depth global news and geopolitical analysis. Now let's take a closer look at what happened. The operation was confirmed by United States Central Command, commonly known as CENTCOM, the U.S. military authority responsible for operations across the Middle East. According to officials, the strike targeted several key Iranian military facilities on Kharg Island, including naval mine storage facilities, missile storage bunkers, military command centers, logistics depots, strategic defense installations. Footage released by CENTCOM reportedly shows precision-guided munitions hitting multiple targets across the island. Military analysts say the objective was clear: reduce Iran's ability to threaten shipping routes in the Persian Gulf. One of the biggest concerns involves naval mines. These underwater explosives can pose a serious threat to oil tankers, cargo ships, and naval vessels passing through the region. By destroying those storage facilities, the United States may have been trying to prevent potential disruptions to global trade routes and protect commercial shipping in the Persian Gulf. To understand why the United States targeted Kharg Island, we first need to understand why this small island is so vital to Iran's economy. Located roughly 25 kilometers off Iran's southern coast in the Persian Gulf, Kharg Island may be small in size, but it plays a huge role in Iran's energy system. In fact, energy analysts estimate that around 90% of Iran's oil exports pass through this island. But the real reasons are technical and geographic. Most of Iran's mainland coastline is too shallow for the world's largest oil tankers. These massive vessels require deep water ports to safely dock and load crude oil. Kharg Island, however, is surrounded by naturally deep waters. This allows giant crude carriers and supertankers to load millions of barrels of oil directly from offshore terminals. Long loading jetties extend into deeper water, allowing multiple tankers to dock at the same time. That makes Kharg one of the most efficient oil export terminals in the entire Persian Gulf. Another major reason is infrastructure. Crude oil from several of Iran's largest oil fields, including Awaz, Marwan, and Gaxaran, is transported through a pipeline network directly to Kharg Island. Once the oil arrives on the island, it is stored in massive storage tanks. It is processed and prepared for export, and it is pumped directly into waiting tankers. This system allows Iran to export millions of barrels of oil per day with remarkable efficiency. Kharg Island also acts as a huge oil storage hub. Energy analysts estimate the island can store tens of millions of barrels of crude oil before it is loaded onto ships. This storage capacity gives Iran the flexibility to manage export schedules, coordinate tanker traffic, stabilize supply during disruptions. In energy trading terms, Kharg Island acts as both a warehouse and an export port. The island's offshore location also provides important strategic advantages. Because it sits away from the mainland, tanker traffic can move more freely. Oil loading operations are easier to secure. And Iran can defend the surrounding waters using naval forces in the Persian Gulf. In other words, Kharg Island is not just an energy hub, it is also a strategic military zone. All of these factors explain why Kharg Island is often described as the backbone of Iran's oil economy. Energy experts say that if the island's export facilities were ever destroyed, Iran's ability to sell oil internationally could collapse almost overnight. That may explain why the United States targeted military installations on the island while carefully avoiding the oil infrastructure. Destroying military assets sends a strategic warning. But damaging the oil terminal could trigger a global oil shock, and possibly a much wider conflict. Following the strike, former U.S. President Donald Trump reacted strongly. In public statements, Trump praised the operation and said U.S. forces had successfully eliminated dozens of military targets. But he also issued a warning. Trump suggested that while oil infrastructure was spared this time, the United States could target those facilities if Iran threatens global shipping routes. Those routes include the nearby Strait of Hormuz. This narrow waterway is one of the most important maritime choke points in the world. Nearly 20% of the world's oil supply passes through the Strait of Hormuz every single day. Any disruption there could trigger a global energy crisis. Trump's comments suggest the strike may be part of a broader strategy aimed at deterring Iran from interfering with international shipping. Iran responded quickly and angrily. Officials in Tehran described the strike as a dangerous escalation in the ongoing conflict with the United States. Iranian authorities also insisted that oil exports from Kharg Island are continuing despite the attack. At the same time, military figures linked to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps warned that Iran could retaliate if further attacks occur. Some officials even suggested that U.S. allies in the region could become potential targets if Iran's energy infrastructure is threatened. There were also warnings about possible disruptions to shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. If that were to happen, global oil prices could rise sharply. The strike has triggered strong reactions around the world. In the United States, public opinion appears deeply divided. Supporters say the strike was necessary to prevent Iranian threats to international shipping and regional stability. Critics warn that the attack could pull the United States into a wider Middle East conflict. Meanwhile, global energy markets are watching the situation closely. Because Kharg Island handles most of Iran's oil exports, any escalation near the island could affect oil supply and global prices. Countries in Asia and Europe that rely heavily on Middle Eastern oil are particularly concerned about stability in the region. Part 6: The Military Strategy. Military analysts believe the strike sends several important strategic messages. First, it demonstrates that the United States can target Iranian military infrastructure with high precision. Second, by avoiding the oil infrastructure, the operation appears designed to limit economic shock while weakening Iran's military capabilities. And third, destroying naval mine storage sites may significantly reduce Iran's ability to threaten shipping routes in the Persian Gulf. This suggests the strike may have been intended as a deterrence operation, not the start of a full-scale attack on Iran's economy. The biggest question now is what happens next. If Iran decides to retaliate directly, tensions in the region could escalate very quickly. And if shipping routes in the Strait of Hormuz are threatened, the impact could spread far beyond the Middle East, affecting the global economy. For now, the strike on Kharg Island highlights just how fragile the balance of power in the region has become. A small island in the Persian Gulf has suddenly become one of the most strategically important locations in the world. This story is still developing. Will this strike deter Iran? Or push the region closer to a wider conflict? What happens next could influence global energy markets, regional security, and the future of the Middle East. For more breaking global news, geopolitical analysis, and international conflict updates, make sure to subscribe to the channel. And tell us in the comments. Do you think the Kharg Island strike will reduce tensions, or push the region closer to war?